Far away out past the moon came a little pink friend all alone. There's a house with a girl inside, such a nice and to his bride. Katie sees a friend in need, Orby. It's Katie and Orby, and here's a bunch of stories about Katie and Orby and all the things they do. Katie's friend Orby now has a brand new family who teach him that people all have some good inside. Fly a kite, find a snake, camp outside or learn to skate. Build a snowman with your friend Orby. Fly a kite, find a snake, camp outside or learn to skate. Build a snowman with your friend Orby. Adventure and playtime should always last a lifetime. And with friends like Orby, the fun is guaranteed. So Katie and Orby are ready with their story, playing and learning from all the things they As the sun begins each day, our new friend is here to stay.
It had been a day of trying new things. Katie found out that although you want to play a pretty song on a flute, it's really hard to do it the first time you try. Orby learned that even if you know how to play a computer game, being fast and winning takes a whole lot of practice. And they both discovered that even though you try to fold the pillowcases with nice tidy edges, it doesn't always happen. Katie dug through her drawers to find her ballet costume. Dad hunted for his wallet. Mom tried to get everyone to eat something, and Orby waited by the door. They were going to try a class day at the dance school where Katie took ballet. In the car, Orby almost bubbled over with excitement. He was very eager to find some kind of dancing that he loved as much as Katie loved ballet. The dance school was abuzz with children and parents. Katie tugged Orby towards her ballet class. She wanted Orby to start there. Dad sat outside the gigantic glass window and watched. Katie's ballet teacher was very happy to have Orby in the class and placed him right beside his best friend. The man at the piano played some lovely music and the class began. Orby copied Katie and did a fine job of plie and grand battement, but it was when it came to the pirouette that Orby had a little bit of a problem. He listened to the music and watched as each person spun across the room to the other side. He knew that he could do this one well. He stepped out to take his turn, and he spun and spun, and he spun so hard, he lost control and landed right in the piano player's lap. When Orby got up, he apologized to the piano player, who told him no harm was done. Katie couldn't help it. She began to giggle. And Orby giggled, and soon everybody giggled. Next, they tried jazz class. This was new for Katie, too, so they didn't really know what to expect. In this class, they had a big boom box that pumped out music. The music had a great beat. And the teacher showed them some jazz steps. They did a kind of bumpy, jumpy dance move where they swung one hip out and hopped to the right. Katie and Orby were having a great time. Dad smiled at them. The teacher introduced stag leaps. She explained that the students were to push hard off the floor and make their legs look like a deer leaping. Katie did a wonderful job. Orby felt that he could be very good doing it too, and he followed the teacher's words exactly. He pushed off hard, but for Orby that sent him right up to the ceiling. And he grabbed onto it. The whole class was silent. No one had ever done a stag leap like that before. The teacher stared, open-mouthed. She didn't know how to get Orby down. Orby smiled a weak little grin and climbed across the ceiling and down the wall. Outside the class, Orby sheepishly burbled to Dad that he thought that he was doing it right. The director at the dance school, who'd been watching, suggested they try a folk dance class because it had a little less leaping. There, the two friends were given some headdresses with long, trailing ribbons. Katie and Orby were gleeful as they held hands and skipped around. The teacher said Orby was very enthusiastic. She asked him to lead the class as they formed a line and danced in and out under each other's arms. Orby was very proud as he skipped along. But sadly, his enthusiasm carried him away, and he managed to tie the entire class into a kind of knot. The director helped sort out the children and then took Orby by the hand. She invited Katie, too. They would try something even better for Orby. In the next class, a man was playing bagpipes. He was dressed in a kilt. This class was called Highland Dancing. The teacher told him that they were supposed to wear kilts, too, and she wrapped one around Katie and then Orby. When they twirled, their kilts flared out. Katie was the first to practice twirling and then kicking her leg out and around in a little circle. She did it well, and everybody clapped. Next, it was Orby's turn. He worked very hard at twirling carefully, and I have to say, he was doing a terrific job. But as he kicked his foot out, he watched to see if he was pointing it well and forgot to look where he was twirling. And in a flash, he got too close to the bagpiper and knocked over the music stand and poked the air right out of the bagpipe. The sound was awful. Again, the director came to his rescue. She told the friends that she didn't give up easily. They could find the perfect class for Orby. Orby was pretty doubtful, but he was still willing to try. A loud, rhythmic knocking, stomping, tapping sound came from down the hall. Katie and Orby couldn't wait to find out what it was. The director told Orby that his problem was he was small and light, and in this class, he'd have to have some special shoes to weigh him down a bit. When Orby put on the clicky-clacky shoes, they were a bit slippery. Once he got onto the dance floor, the teacher told him how to make a tap with them. He and Katie practiced tapping. They tapped with the rhythm of the music. They made a tip-tip-tap sound. Orby was the first one to get it right. The director looked pleased, and Dad was too. But he knew Orby wasn't spinning or leaping yet. One by one, the class began traveling around the room, tipping and tapping. When it came to Orby's turn, Katie and Dad held their breath. But they had no need to worry. The shoes held Orby on the ground. He completed his circle perfectly without even missing a beat. He was terrific at it. The director smiled. She knew that she'd found a perfect class for Orby. No one will ever forget Try a Class Day. It was the day Orby realized that even if you have trouble doing some things well, if you keep looking for just the right thing, one day you certainly will find it. And if you haven't found something that you can do really well, just remember Orby and keep trying. Because one day you'll surprise yourself and be excellent at something very special, just like Orby.
Flossing your teeth is just as important as brushing your teeth. The floss can actually reach places your toothbrush can't find. You can get your mom or dad to show you how to properly floss. Wow! What a great smile!
It had been a morning of cooking. Katie found out that if shell bits fall into the frying pan, you are going to have crunchy egg. And Orby learned that sometimes milk pours out faster than you think. And they both discovered that jams come in the colors of the fruit that they're made from. On this particular day, the whole family was perched on Mom and Dad's bed, enjoying breakfast. It happened that Katie, who was loving the rather squished but fun experience, asked Mom if she remembered eating breakfast in bed with her parents. As Mom spread marmalade on her toast, she shook her head. She couldn't remember if she had ever done that. And Katie thought it was strange that Mom didn't remember. But she was keen to find out if Dad had, so she asked him. Dad said that they'd never done it in his family either. At least he couldn't remember if they had. Katie frowned at this. How could they possibly forget something so nice? Mom sighed. Some things were difficult to remember. Orby raised a finger and burbled that it was important to remember things. Mom had told him that herself. Dad looked at Mom because Orby was right. Mom said that over the years some of the past got a little foggy. Katie could not believe it. She asked, could they remember what their favorite color was? Nobody would ever forget that. Dad looked at Mom and then he chuckled because he honestly couldn't recall even having a favorite color. Mom giggled. It was silly not to be able to recall these things. But Katie wasn't giggling at all. She turned to her best friend who was trying hard to stay on the bed and she asked him, what if they forgot? Orby looked at her. They would never forget the things that were so special to them. But Katie said if Mom and Dad had forgotten, then maybe everybody does. This was starting to worry Katie. Mom put her arm around her and said that she did remember that she loved to play in rain puddles. Dad said he used to love to catch frogs. Katie was encouraged. She asked what Dad's favorite breakfast was when he was a kid. And Dad thought and thought, but nothing came. Then Orby burbled, did Mom like to play board games when she was his age? Mom scratched her head. She thought, well, maybe she did. But strange, it was so hard to remember about your own self. As Katie and Orby put their cups on the kitchen table, they realized they had a problem. They did not want to forget anything ever. Katie put her hands on Orby's shoulders. They'd better work at remembering right this minute in case they were already forgetting. They scurried to the couch and sat there, trying hard to remember everything. It hit Orby first. He couldn't remember his very first favorite toy. Katie did. It was her teddy, but she couldn't remember her favorite outfit when she was 3. The two friends looked at each other. If they were already forgetting, they were in trouble. It was about that time that Dad trotted down the stairs with a notepad, a coloring pad, and crayons, and Mom came down behind him with a pen. Mom explained that it was easy to forget when a whole long life filled up all of the spaces in your brain. So she and Dad had come up with an idea. Dad put his things down on the coffee table. The two friends couldn't wait to hear what the idea was. Dad explained that they were going to write a letter to themselves in the future. And when they got to the future, they could remember the past that way. Mom said that the future is a whole lot of days and nights from right now, maybe 2 or 3 years of them. Orby burbled to Katie that it was getting pretty complicated. Dad wondered if the friends could remember what they had for dinner 3 Saturdays ago. Katie and Orby thought and moaned and churned, but in fact so much had happened since then that they couldn't. Dad smiled. That was the problem. They would write a letter today so that when a few weeks or months or even years went by, they could read the letter and remember. Katie clapped her hands. She loved the remembering part. Orby burbled, it was a perfect plan. Dad wore a silly hat and pretended to be a reporter. First, he asked Orby what was his favorite thing to do in winter. Orby leapt up on the chair pretending that he was doing it. He was driving the sleigh at Micah's farm. Katie loved everything about winter, but making snow art in their front yard, that was the best. Mom wanted to know about favorite things to eat. Everybody knew that Orby would toot orbits. Katie smiled. They were Dad's famous made-to-order pancakes. Dad rubbed the pen in his whiskers. What was their favorite pretend game? Katie said the Snow Princess, and Orby chose the Grouchy Troll. Yum, 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 yum. Mom asked about their favorite presents. Orby tooted that it was his cowboy boots. And I have to say, everybody agreed. Katie thought hard. She had a whole lot of nice presents. Then she remembered all the fun she and her friends had drawing a storybook on the driveway. It was definitely the sidewalk chalk. What was the most exciting thing that had happened to them, Dad asked. Katie thought it was winning the drawing contest. Orby loved that, but nothing beat the joy he felt when he conducted the orchestra. They spent all morning remembering and writing things down. They drew pictures, too, and chose some photos. Mom kissed Dad's cheek and suggested they do the same thing. She looked at the two friends drawing away. After all, who would ever want to forget this moment? Dad loved her idea, and it reminded him of a good question. Who was their very best friend? Katie looked at Orby and giggled. And Orby beamed at her. There was no question. They hugged to prove it. At the end of the day, with all of the questions answered, the pictures drawn and a few photographs thrown in, Katie and Orby licked and sealed their envelopes. Katie announced that now her today self was safe in her memory. Orby tooted his was too. Mom placed the envelopes in her safekeeping box where they would wait for the future. That night at dinner, the entire family agreed that writing memory letters was so much fun that they would do it every year. And that was a very good idea. I'm sure you could do something like that at your house. You're very much worth remembering. And when you get to the future, you'll love the reminders.
Hot air rises and cold air drops. That's how hot air balloons work. When the pilot wants to go higher, she heats up the air in the balloon with a special heater. And that could be very useful when you need to avoid something like a mountain. Look out below!
It had been a day of interesting things. Katie learned that carrots are actually the roots of a plant. Orby found out that forks always go on the left side when you set the table. And they both discovered that sometimes short glasses hold as much as tall ones. As Katie dumped out a puzzle onto the coffee table, she overheard Dad tell someone on the phone that he was running out of patience with the delays. At the time, she thought it was just business talk and didn't pay too much attention. She was sorting out the edge pieces of her puzzle when Orby came down the stairs. He burbled that he wanted to play tag. Katie said that she was in a puzzle kind of mood. Just then, Mom came in and flopped down on the couch. Orby hurried over to her. He tooted that maybe he and Mom could play tag. Mom smiled a worn-out smile and told Orby that she had run out of energy as far as playing tag with him went. She just wanted to lie on the couch for a moment. Later, when Katie and Orby were carpet bowling, Mom rushed in with her purse and told them that she was running out of groceries and the time to get them. Katie looked up. Boy, she thought to herself, you sure can run out of a lot of things. That afternoon, as Katie and Orby were scarf dancing in their room, it suddenly hit Katie that if you could run out of patience and energy, time and groceries, maybe you could run out of love, too. That thought was like a chilly finger on her spine. She whispered in Orby's ear that she was afraid that one day Mom and Dad might run out of love for them. Orby he giggled because it seemed so silly, but then he saw the serious look on Katie's face. She told him what she heard that day. If Mom and Dad could run out of so many other things, maybe love was next. Orby's mouth dropped open. That would be the very worst thing in the world. He could hardly believe it. But he could tell by Katie's grave nod that it was possible. By now, of course, Orby was worried about it too. Orby burbled that they had to stop the love from running out. They gave up the scarf dancing completely and climbed up in Katie's bed. Katie wondered, although to tell you the truth, she really didn't know if maybe love ran out when you used it up, like groceries. Orby couldn't help but think how clever his best friend was. So then and there it was decided that they would be as good as gold. They would not use up any extra love. The two friends wouldn't let Mom or Dad do anything special for them and would only bother them if they were needed for health or safety reasons. When Mom asked if Orby wanted Orbits for dinner, he shook his head and hurried out of the room. Later, when Katie sauntered into the kitchen to do some art, Dad said that he'd clear the table off to make a place for her. Katie quickly told Dad she didn't need the kitchen table. She could do her artwork in her room. When Dad turned to say that he'd enjoy her company, there was nobody there. Mom found Dad in the kitchen and told him that something was up. Dad said he thought so too. And with that, they went to the stairs and called the two friends. As the two friends came down the stairs, Dad asked if perhaps today was a good day for a family council meeting. Katie and Orby looked at each other. They shook their heads. Katie told Mom and Dad that they were just going to play quietly in their bedroom until supper time. As they turned to run up the stairs so that they wouldn't use up an ounce more of love, Dad called their names. They both stopped at the very same moment. Dad asked them very nicely to come to the couch. Katie and Orby whipped down the stairs and were sitting on the couch before Dad had even finished his sentence. Mom asked what was wrong so warmly that Katie and Orby could just hear all the love being used up in her voice. They looked at each other glumly. What were they going to do? Mom and Dad waited. It was hard for Katie and Orby to find a way to say their fears. Mom got down in front of the two friends and put a hand on each lap. She told them that there wasn't a thing in the world, good or bad, that they couldn't tell her or Dad. Nothing. A tiny tear was creeping out of the corner of Katie's eye. She blurted out that she had heard them say that they were running out of all kinds of things like patience and energy and time, and she and Orby were afraid that Mom and Dad would run right out of love for them. Now, I have to say that this was such unexpected news. Mom and Dad literally stared from one to the other for a second. And then they grabbed up the friends in a huge group hug. Dad spoke softly. Running out of love would never be a problem, he said. There was an amazing secret that they should know about love. Katie and Orby listened, eyes wide open. Dad sat on the floor and explained that the more you loved, the more room you had inside to grow new love. Katie looked at Orby. You could never love too many people because inside of you, as you gave it away, more love would grow. The friends were strangely silent for a moment. And then they jumped up and down, relieved at the good news. That evening, Katie and Orby decided to give out a whole bunch of love so they could grow more love, too. And they hugged Mom and Dad and Chance. And then with Mom's help, they called all their friends and told them the love secret. Well, their friends thought it was a great secret to know. And at the end of the calls, both Katie and Orby said, "I really love you," to be sure that they were giving lots away. Soon they headed upstairs to bed. After hugs and goodnight kisses, the two friends drifted off to sleep. As they slept, inside they could feel more love growing already. The secret was true. And if you remember the love secret and give lots of love away, a whole lot of love will come back to you. And oh, one last thing. Katie and Orby asked me to tell you that they really love you too.